What if the person you love most in the world was no longer them? What if one night while they slept something came into your home? Something ancient and unseen. It didn't take them. Did something far worse. It replaced them, leaving behind a perfect copy, a hollow imitation that looks, talks, and acts just like them. But inside it's empty. A soulless copy. A changeling. This isn't a forgotten myth. It is the single most terrifying and consistent element in the global folklore of fairies. And it raises a chilling question. If they can replace a child in a crib, could they replace an adult? Could they replace someone you know? Someone you see every day? How would you even know? This is the fundamental truth that has been intentionally scrubbed from our modern stories. We've been sold a lie. A comfortable, glittering lie of tiny winged creatures, of Tinkerbell and Tooth Fairies. But the original stories, the ones whispered in fear around fires for thousands of years, tell a different tale. They speak of a race of beings not from our world, who are beautiful, powerful, terrifying, and deeply interested in humanity. They are not our friends. They are the fair folk, the good neighbors, the gentry, names created out of pure terror, because to speak their true name was to invite their attention. And their attention is the last thing you ever want. Because when you peel back the layers of Disney animation and Victorian-era greeting cards, you find a dark and consistent pattern stretching across human history. A pattern of disappearances, of pacts and bargains with terrible consequences, and of a hidden world, a parallel reality, that is closer than any of us dare to imagine. The question isn't whether fairies are real. The question is, what are they truly? And after centuries of hiding, are they starting to show themselves again? To understand the truth, we have to erase everything we think we know. The first mistake is thinking of them as small. The original fairies of Celtic lore were anything but. They were known as the Tuatha De Danann, a tribe of gods and goddesses who sailed to Ireland on dark clouds, wielding incredible magic and advanced knowledge. They were described as tall, noble, and impossibly beautiful, beings of immense power who ruled the land long before humans. They were not sprites hiding in flowers. They were kings and queens, warriors and sorcerers. They were defeated in a great war, not by humans, but by another invading force, the Milesians, the ancestors of the modern Irish people. But the Tuatha De Danann were not destroyed. They were driven underground. Literally. They retreated into the hollow hills, the ancient burial mounds known as the Seelie. From these subterranean palaces, they established a new kingdom, a realm that exists parallel to our own. They called it the Otherworld. This isn't a fantasy land in the sky. It is a dimension, a coexisting reality that occupies the same space as our world, but on a different vibrational frequency. Think of it like a radio station you can't quite tune into. It's right there but invisible, separated by a veil. But that veil is thin in certain places and at certain times. Ancient stone circles, secluded forest groves, the twilight hour between day and night, the liminal moments of the year like Halloween or Samhain, when the barrier between our world and theirs becomes permeable. This is when they can cross over. And this is when a human can stumble accidentally into their world. Getting there is the easy part. Skidding back, that's the problem. Time in the other world flows differently. A single night of dancing and feasting at a fairy ball could be 100 years in our world. The legendary Irish hero Oisin spent what he thought was 3 years in the land of eternal youth, Tir na Nog. When he returned, he found his friends and family were long dead. His home was unrecognizable, and 300 years had passed. The moment his feet touched the soil of Ireland, his body aged instantly and he turned to dust. This is a consistent warning across all cultures. Their world is not meant for us. Its very nature is toxic to mortals, and that toxicity extends to their food. This is the most critical rule, the one that appears in nearly every story. Do not eat the food of the Fae. Not a single crumb of bread, not one drop of wine. To do so is to bind yourself to their realm forever. You become their property. It's not a simple act of hospitality, it is a contract. And the fair folk are masters of contracts, of twisting words and exploiting loopholes. They operate on a system of reciprocity and balance that is utterly alien to our own morality. They don't understand good and evil as we do. They understand debt and payment, power and weakness. This is why you must never thank them. Saying thank you implies you are indebted to them, and they will come to collect, often in a way you could never anticipate. Instead, the proper response is to offer a gift of your own, something of equal or greater value to balance the scales. A drop of milk, a piece of bread left on the doorstep. These offerings were not quaint traditions, they were protection payments. A desperate plea to be left alone. These beings, these original Fae, were not mischievous pixies. They were abductors. The stories are filled with them taking things from our world. They steal livestock, skim the cream from milk, and blight crops. But what they covet most are humans themselves. They are fascinated by our creativity, our mortality, and our ability to have children. They steal talented musicians to play at their endless revels, beautiful women to be their brides, and most disturbingly healthy human babies. This is the origin of the changeling myth. The Fae would swap a human infant for one of their own, often a sickly, withered fairy child, or sometimes just an enchanted piece of wood. A glamour designed to look like a baby until the magic fades, leaving grieving parents with nothing but splinters and ash. These stories were carried across the Atlantic by immigrants from Ireland, Scotland, and the British Isles. They brought their fears and their beliefs with them, and they found that the deep ancient forests of the New World were just as wild and enchanted as the old. The Appalachian Mountains, with their strange blue haze and deep, shadowed hollows, became a new frontier for these ancient entities. The folklore of the little people in the Smoky Mountains bears a striking resemblance to the City of Ireland. Local legends in New England and the Ozarks tell of people who wandered into the woods and never came back, or returned years later with no memory of where they'd been, convinced only a few hours had passed. We dismiss these as folk tales, as primitive attempts to explain the unexplainable. But the pattern is too specific, too consistent across too many cultures separated by oceans and centuries. The rules are always the same, the descriptions of their world are always the same, and the consequences of crossing them are always the same. We have simply forgotten the old rules. We have dressed them up in glitter and given them wands, turning predators into pets. We've convinced ourselves that the monsters our ancestors feared were just products of a superstitious imagination. But what if they weren't? What if they were just better at hiding? What if the reason we see them less is not because they vanished, but because we stopped knowing how to look? The truth is, the evidence of their existence has been all around us this entire time. It's embedded in our history, our language, and even in our science. Because the key to understanding the Fae, to proving their reality, lies in their single greatest weakness. A weakness so profound, so absolute, that it shaped their entire civilization and forced them into hiding. And it's a material we build our own world with every single day. Iron, cold iron. To us, it's the backbone of civilization, the skeleton of our skyscrapers, the engine in our cars, the tool in our hands. To the Fae, it is poison. It is anti-magic. It is a cosmic anchor that rips them from their ethereal state and slams them into the brutal, unforgiving laws of physical reality. Think of it this way. The Fae exist on a different vibrational plane, a state of being that is woven directly from the raw, magical energies of the earth itself. They can phase through a solid oak tree because, on a fundamental level, they and the tree are made of the same living, natural energy. They can ride the wind, speak to animals, and glamour our senses because they are masters of this energy. They are living conduits of it. But iron is different. Specifically, cold-wrought iron. Unlike bronze or copper, which exist in a more natural state, iron that has been mined, smelted, and forged by human hands undergoes a fundamental change. It becomes a null zone. A magical dead spot. Its dense, metallic structure doesn't just resist magic, it violently unravels it. When a Fae touches iron, it's not just a burn. It's a catastrophic system failure. The energy that holds their form together is instantly grounded, short-circuited. Their glamour shatters. Their connection to the natural world is severed. They become painfully, agonizingly solid. And in that solid state, they are vulnerable. They can be hurt. They can be trapped. They can be killed. This isn't just some fanciful theory. It is the key that unlocks nearly every piece of fairy folklore across the globe. Why do we hang a horseshoe over a doorway for good luck? It's not luck. It was a shield. An iron archway no Fae could pass under. Why were church bells, often cast in iron, believed to drive away evil spirits? Because their resonant frequency projected that magic-canceling property through the very air, creating a zone of protection. Think about the old tales of burying iron knives under a home's foundation, or placing iron scissors in a crib to protect a baby from being swapped with a changeling. These weren't superstitions. They were ancient, practical security systems, passed down from a time when the threat was very, very real. The village blacksmith wasn't just a tradesman. He was the town's chief of defense. He was the one person who could forge the weapons and wards that kept the Fae at bay. He was respected and often feared, because he held the power of their one true weakness in his hands. And this weakness is what ultimately led to their disappearance from our world. It wasn't a great glorious war of swords and sorcery like we see in the movies. It was something far slower, far more tragic. It was an extinction event driven by our own progress. For millennia, during the Stone and Bronze Ages, humanity and the Fae existed in a delicate balance. Humans were a part of the natural world, and the Fae were its masters. We coexisted, sometimes peacefully, sometimes not. Our paths would cross in the deep woods at ancient stone circles on moonless nights. They were the gods and monsters of our earliest stories. Then, around 1200 BC, everything changed. Humanity discovered the secret of smelting iron. The Iron Age began. And for the Fae, it was the beginning of the end. Suddenly, the world started to become toxic to them. The forests they called home were cleared with iron axes, tools that not only cut the wood but poisoned the very spirit of the place. The fields were tilled with iron plows, scarring the land with lines of magic deadening metal. Human settlements, once small pockets in a vast wilderness, began to expand, and every new home was built with iron nails. Every door hung on iron hinges. Our progress was their poison. Every iron sword forged for our wars, every rail laid for our trains, every pipe laid for our water. Each one was another nail in the coffin of their world. The very air began to carry the taint of the forge. The rivers ran with industrial runoff. The magical energy of the earth, the ley lines that were their highways and their source of power, were disrupted and severed by the spreading grid of our ironclad civilization. They couldn't breathe. They couldn't exist. We were, without even knowing it, systematically eradicating them from the planet. Faced with this slow, creeping apocalypse, the Fae civilization fractured. A great debate, a terrible schism, tore their society in two, creating the two great courts that have been whispered about in lore ever since, the Seelie and the Unseelie. The Seelie court, often called the Summer or Golden Court, were the aristocrats, the nobles, the ones who saw themselves as the graceful custodians of nature. They were beings of light, beauty, and order. They saw what was happening to the world. They saw that humanity, with its relentless ambition and its mastery of iron, had won. They believed the age of magic was over, and the age of man had begun. And so they made a choice. A heartbreaking, world-altering choice. They decided to leave. They gathered the last of the world's pure, untainted magic. In a ritual of unimaginable power, they severed the final ties between our world and theirs. They pulled their realms, the lands of Tir na Nog, of Avalon, of Arcadia, out of our physical reality, folding them into a pocket dimension, a hidden kingdom protected by a veil that our iron-bound senses could never pierce. They retreated, saving themselves but abandoning the world they once ruled. They chose to become a myth, a memory, a half-forgotten dream of a more magical time. They are the fairies of our storybooks, the beautiful, benevolent beings who are no longer here. But not all of the Fae agreed. There was another court, the Unseelie, the Winter Court, the Dark Fae. They were the wild ones, the creatures of the hunt, of the storm, of the deep, dark places of the world. They were pragmatic. They were survivors. And they were furious. They saw humanity's expansion not as progress, but as an invasion, an act of war. They saw the Seelie's great retreat as an act of cowardice. Abandon this world? Their world? Never. They refused to run. They refused to hide behind a magical veil. If the world was to be poisoned by iron, then they would learn to endure the poison. If humanity was to be the new dominant species, then they would learn to live in our shadows, to hunt in our alleys, to prey on our fears. They chose to stay. They chose to adapt. The Seelie vanished, content to be a beautiful memory. But the Unseelie, they didn't just survive in our iron-choked world. They learned to use our own creations, our own society against us. They became masters of a new kind of magic, one born not of nature, but of shadow, of technology, of the forgotten liminal spaces of our own cities. And the creatures they evolved into, they are the source of our most modern nightmares. They are the Greys, the visitors, the beings at the center of the modern abduction phenomenon. Think about the classic account. A person is sleeping, often in a rural home, not unlike the cottages of old. A strange light appears outside the window. A low hum fills the air. The victim is paralyzed, overcome by a force they cannot fight. They are floated out of their own bed, through walls and windows into a waiting craft. Inside, the environment is cold, sterile, and alien. They are laid upon a table, where slender, gray-skinned beings with large, black, inscrutable eyes perform strange medical procedures. Probes are used. Samples are taken. Time itself seems to bend and distort. What feels like an eternity might only be a few minutes of missing time back in our world. And then they are returned, often with a small, strange scar and a head full of fragmented, terrifying memories. Now let's peel back the thin veneer of science fiction and look at the stories our ancestors told for thousands of years. A farmer is traveling home at dusk, near an old mound or a ring of stones. He hears a beautiful, otherworldly music. He is entranced, paralyzed by its power. He is led away into the fairy hill, which opens like a doorway into another world. Inside, time moves differently. He might feast and dance for what feels like a single night, only to emerge 100 years later into a world that has forgotten him. Or he might be taken by the Fae for a more sinister purpose, to have his life force drained, to be experimented on, or to sire a hybrid child, a changeling, to be swapped with a human baby. The parallels are not just similar, they are identical. The paralysis, the strange lights and sounds, the abduction from one's own home, the journey to an otherworldly realm where time is meaningless, the invasive, often reproductive-focused procedures, the hybrid offspring. The only thing that has changed is the costume. The fairy hill has become a silver saucer. The magical wand has become a medical probe. The Fae, with their shimmering, beautiful, terrifying forms, have put on the gray, biologically efficient skins of interstellar travelers. Why? Because glamour is the magic of belief. In an age of superstition, we believed in magical creatures living under the hills. So that is what we saw. In an age of science and space exploration, we believe in the possibility of life from other planets. So now that is what we see. They have simply changed their clothes to match our expectations. They are master chameleons, and our collective consciousness is their color palette. These grays are not visitors from Zeta Reticuli. They are the Unseelie, the people of the mounds, wearing a new mask to continue their ancient work, their ancient harvest of humanity, hidden in plain sight. But not all of them hide in the guise of aliens. As our own societies grew more complex, more organized, and more secretive, so did theirs. They needed a new kind of enforcer, a new way to maintain the veil, to police the border between their world and ours. They needed agents to silence those who saw too much, to confiscate evidence, and to ensure the carefully constructed glamour of aliens or swamp gas was never fully pierced. And so another modern nightmare was born. The Men in Black. You've heard the stories. A UFO sighting is reported to the local paper or the police. A day or two later, a long black vintage Cadillac pulls up to the witness's house. 2, sometimes 3 men get out. They are off. Their skin is too pale, almost plastic-like. Their features are slightly mismatched, their movements stiff and awkward. They wear pristine, identical black suits, even on the hottest day of summer. When they speak, their voices are monotone, their grammar strange, using outdated slang as if they learned English from a 1950s phrasebook. They know things they couldn't possibly know. The witnesses name their job, the exact details of what they saw, details they hadn't told anyone. They issue vague, chilling threats. They tell the witness it would be better for them, for their family, if they forgot what they saw, that it was just a weather balloon, that they were mistaken. They ask for any photographs or physical evidence, which is never seen again. Then they get back in their silent car and drive away, sometimes vanishing into thin air. Witnesses are left with a profound sense of dread, a feeling of having interacted with something utterly inhuman pretending to be a government agent. These are not G-men. They are the enforcers of the Fae courts, cloaked in the modern glamour of a shadowy government conspiracy. In ancient times, a person who stumbled upon a fairy circle and saw the revels within might be struck blind, or have their tongue tied, or be cursed to never speak of it again. The Men in Black are the modern equivalent of that curse. They are the gatekeepers. Their uncanny valley appearance, their strange movements, their non-human aura. It all points to a being wearing a human suit that doesn't quite fit. They are the Unseelie Courts secret police, ensuring the masquerade continues, that humanity remains a docile, manageable herd, never fully realizing who our silent landlords truly are. But the most insidious adaptation, the one that brings the Fae closer to us than ever before, isn't found in the skies or in black sedans. It's found in the static between channels, in the hum of your refrigerator, in the corner of your eye. As we built a world of electricity, of radio waves, of digital information, we created a whole new ecosystem of liminal space. A new shadow world for the Fae to inhabit. They have become the glitchkin, the shadow people. Have you ever been on the verge of sleep, in that state between waking and dreaming, and felt a presence in the room? A weight on your chest? You try to move, to scream, but you are utterly paralyzed. And then you see it. A dark humanoid figure standing in the corner of your room, or at the foot of your bed. Sometimes it's just a shifting mass of shadow. Other times it wears a fedora, the infamous Hat Man. It has no discernible features, just a void in the shape of a man, and you are filled with a primal, bottomless terror. Sleep paralysis is a recognized medical phenomenon, but what if the phenomenon is merely the door, and these entities are what waits on the other side? These are the Fae in their most raw, terrifying form. Stripped of the glamour of beauty or advanced technology, they appear as pure predatory intent. They thrive in the in-between states, in the buzz of the electrical grid that powers our homes. They are the faces you sometimes see in the static of an old television, the whispers you hear in a crossed phone line. They are the reason you feel a sudden, inexplicable chill in a perfectly warm room. They are the figures that dart just at the edge of your vision, gone when you turn to look. They have woven themselves into the very fabric of our technological world. We created the internet, a vast, non-physical space, an otherworld of pure information. Do we really think they wouldn't learn to live there? Slender Man, a creature born of internet forums, a tall, faceless being in a suit who stalks and abducts people. Does that not sound like a new kind of Fae? A tulpa brought into being by our collective digital belief and fear? The Greys, the Men in Black, the Shadow People. These are not separate, unrelated mysteries. They are factions, castes, adaptations of a single ancient intelligence that has been sharing this planet with us from the very beginning. They have evolved alongside us, their magic shifting from twisting the branches of an oak tree to twisting the code of a computer program. Their glamour has shifted from the mists of the forest to the static of the screen. They have turned our own progress, our own nightmares, our own beliefs, into their perfect camouflage. They are hiding in the noise of our civilization. And the most terrifying question is not what they have become, but why. This vast, coordinated, multi-generational deception, abducting us, policing us, feeding on our fear, it cannot simply be for survival. Feels like a project, a plan. They are building something, or perhaps rebuilding something. They are gathering resources, our DNA, our technology, our fear, our belief. And if you look closely at the patterns, at the end goal of all these different modern encounters, one chilling possibility begins to emerge. They aren't just adapting to our world. They are preparing to remake it in their own image. This remaking of our world isn't happening with tidal waves or earthquakes. It's not an invasion of spaceships in the sky. It's quieter, more insidious. It's happening in the periphery of our vision, in the static between radio stations, in the thoughts we mistake for our own. To understand their strategy, we have to look back at one of the oldest and most terrifying pieces of their lore. The changeling. For centuries, parents lived in mortal fear of it. The story was always the same. A healthy, happy human baby would be stolen from its crib in the dead of night, and in its place, the Fae would leave one of their own. This fairy imposter, the changeling, was often sickly, perpetually crying, and had an unsettling ancient wisdom in its eyes. It would drain the family of its resources, its joy, its very spirit, a parasite wearing the face of a loved one. Folklore is filled with horrific remedies. Parents, driven to madness, would try to force the changeling to reveal itself by holding its feet to the fire, or leaving it on a hot shovel. The belief was that the Fae, seeing their own child in danger, would be forced to return the stolen human baby. It's a brutal, desperate image born from an age of high infant mortality, a way to explain away the unexplainable, sudden illness, developmental disorders, the heartbreaking mystery of a child who is suddenly different. But like all enduring myths, the terror of the changeling isn't just about what happened then. It's a warning about what is happening now. Because the Fae are still in the business of swapping. They've just scaled up their operation. They're no longer interested in just one cradle. They're after our entire culture. What if the modern changeling isn't a sickly infant? What if it's an idea? A belief? A memory? Think about it. An idea, planted in the collective consciousness, can be far more powerful and destructive than any single physical being. It can grow, mutate, and spread like a virus, draining a society of its cohesion, its trust, its shared sense of reality. The Fae have learned that you don't need to replace a person if you can simply replace what they believe. You can hollow them out from the inside, leaving the shell intact, but with a new, alien operating system running beneath the surface. This is where the fabric of our modern world begins to look thin, almost transparent. Consider the phenomenon known as the Mandela effect. Millions of people share a distinct, vivid memory of something that, according to all available records, never happened. They remember a movie about a genie called Shazam, starring the comedian Sinbad that doesn't exist. They remember the Berenstain Bears being spelled Berenstein. They remember Nelson Mandela dying in prison in the 1980s. We dismiss this as collective misremembering, the fallibility of human memory on a mass scale. But that explanation feels incomplete. It doesn't account for the visceral certainty people feel. The feeling that reality itself has been edited. What if it has? What if these aren't memory errors but glitches in the matrix? The seams showing where our reality has been patched and rewritten? The Fae operate on a logic that is fluid, dreamlike. For them, reality isn't a fixed constant. It's a story to be told. And if they can get enough people to believe in a different version of the story, their version, then reality itself begins to warp and conform to the new narrative. Each Mandela effect is a test, a small-scale reality-bending experiment to see how much they can change before we notice. They are subtly, painstakingly replacing our shared history with a changeling version, a counterfeit that looks almost identical but is fundamentally wrong. They're creating a world that is less stable, less certain, a world where our own minds can no longer be trusted, a world ripe for their influence. This infiltration extends beyond memory. It reaches into the physical world, into the very spaces we inhabit. Look at the thousands of unsettlingly similar cases of people who vanish from our national parks. The so-called missing 411 phenomenon. People disappear under the most bizarre circumstances, often just feet away from their families. Search parties find no tracks, no scent for dogs to follow. It's as if they were simply plucked out of existence. The old lore would say they were taken, stolen away to fairy, and sometimes they return. Weeks, months, even years later, they are found, often disoriented, with no memory of where they've been. But they are always changed. The classic changeling was a physical replacement. The modern changeling might be the original person returned, but they've been reprogrammed. They've spent time in a place where the laws of physics and time are different. They've seen things our minds are not built to comprehend. They come back with a new perspective, a new purpose, whether they are conscious of it or not. They become unwitting agents, carriers of the Fae's influence, spreading their strange logic and alien worldview back into our society. They are the sleeper cells in a war we don't even know we're fighting. Each person who returns from the other world is a crack in the foundation of our reality, a doorway left open. So how are they achieving this on such a massive scale? How are they planting these changeling ideas and altering our very perception of the world? They're using our own technology against us. They are masters of glamour, the power to create illusions, to make you see what they want you to see. And what is the internet? What is social media, if not the most powerful glamour engine ever invented? It's a global, interconnected web of perception, and they are pulling the strings. Think of viral trends, memes, online challenges that seem to spring from nowhere and spread with unnatural speed. Think of the echo chambers that isolate us, feeding us curated realities that reinforce our biases and fears, making consensus impossible. We see this as a flaw in our digital systems, a product of algorithms and human nature. But what if it's by design? What if the Fae are using our own networks to weave a global glamour, a digital veil that settles over our consciousness? They don't need to whisper in our ears at night when they can slide into our DMs, our news feeds, our recommendation engines. They are terraforming our minds, making the landscape of human thought more chaotic, more emotional, more superstitious, more like their world. They are breaking down our reliance on the cold iron of the 21st century. Data, logic, scientific reason. Cold iron was the one thing that could repel the Fae, the one thing their magic could not touch. Our modern cold iron is our shared, verifiable, objective reality, and they are doing everything in their power to rust it, to corrode it, to make us doubt its very existence. They are preparing the ground, because when we can no longer agree on what is real, when our own memories are suspect, when the world feels like a waking dream, that is when they can step out of the shadows. That is when their world can finally bleed fully into ours. The most chilling part of this strategy is that we are willing participants. We invite the glamour into our homes, into our pockets, into our minds. We willingly stare into the glowing screens that feed us these changeling realities. The ultimate trick, the masterstroke of their plan, isn't just to replace our world. It's to convince us to help them do it. To make us believe that the destruction of our own reality was our idea all along. And the infiltration isn't just happening on a global scale, out there in the abstract world of data and culture. It's happening on a much more intimate level. It's happening inside you. That strange, intrusive thought you had this morning. That sudden wave of baseless paranoia. That fleeting memory of a childhood friend you can't be sure ever really existed. Are you sure those things are your own? Or are you slowly, piece by piece, being replaced from within? It's a terrifying thought, isn't it? That your own mind isn't a fortress, but a conquered territory. That the person looking back at you in the mirror is just a tenant, living in a body that isn't truly theirs anymore. Their original consciousness slowly being hollowed out, replaced by something alien. This isn't just about babies swapped in the cradle. The changeling mythos runs much deeper, and is far more insidious. It taps into our most primal fears of identity, of belonging, and of the horrifying possibility that the ones we love most could be, in reality, complete and utter strangers. But to truly understand the horror, we have to ask the fundamental question: why? Why would a race of powerful magical beings go to such lengths? Why steal a human child? The answer, like everything with the Fae, is a tangled web of desperation, debt, and pure unadulterated malice. One of the most compelling theories, and perhaps the most tragic, is that the fairies need us to survive. Imagine a species as old as the stones and the trees. Their bloodline, once potent, has grown thin over millennia. Their magic is fading. They look upon humanity, this loud, chaotic, short-lived species, with a desperate envy. They see our vitality, our raw life force, our fertility. And so they steal our children not just to have them, but to infuse their dying race with new, vibrant blood. The human child is taken to the fairy mound, raised among the Fae, and eventually interbred to strengthen their weakening lineage. The thing left in its place, the changeling, is often one of their own, a sickly, weak fairy child that they cannot afford to raise, left in the human world as a desperate gamble. They hope the love and care of a human mother might save it. But our world, our food, even our air is often poison to them. The changeling's incessant screaming, its insatiable hunger, its failure to thrive. It's not a sign of evil. It's the sound of a creature slowly and painfully dying in a world it was never meant for. This paints a picture not of monsters, but of a desperate, ancient people on the brink of extinction. But there is another, far darker explanation. An explanation found whispered in the folklore of Scotland and Ireland. Is the concept of the tainted or the tithe to hell. According to these legends, the fairies are not the ultimate power. They themselves are a subject race, bound by an ancient pact. Every 7 years they are forced to pay a tribute, a tithe to the forces of hell. And this tithe isn't paid in gold or jewels. It's paid in souls. The legends say that the Fae cannot bear to part with one of their own kind, so they steal the most perfect human children they can find, the unblemished, the beautiful, the beloved, and offer them up as payment to save themselves. The changeling left behind is a decoy, a piece of enchanted wood or a lesser fairy being, designed to fool the parents just long enough for the real child to be delivered to its horrifying fate. Think about that. The beautiful, glittering world of the Fae is built on a foundation of stolen children, sacrificed to a power even they are terrified of. They are not just kidnappers. They are middlemen in the most horrific transaction imaginable. Of course, sometimes the reason is much simpler, and in a way much more chilling. Sometimes it's just envy. The Fae are immortal, but many folklorists believe they are soulless. They watch us live our brief, passionate lives. They see us love, grieve, create, and pray. They see a spiritual depth they can never possess, and they hate us for it. They steal a child not for its blood or as a tithe, but simply to own something they can never be. They take a human soul and keep it as a pet, a curiosity. The changeling they leave behind is an act of pure contempt, a mockery of human life. It is designed to drain the family of its love, its resources, its happiness. It is a parasite meant to poison the heart of a human home from the inside out, a final cruel joke played by a being that despises humanity's light. This brings us to the changeling itself. What was it like for the families who believed one had been left in their home? For centuries before the advent of modern medicine, the changeling was a powerful explanation for a host of tragic and terrifying childhood afflictions. A baby born with an undiagnosed genetic disorder, a child who developed symptoms of cystic fibrosis or severe food allergies. These were things our ancestors had no way to comprehend. All they saw was a child who was once healthy and happy suddenly become inconsolable, ravenously hungry yet wasting away, physically present but emotionally distant. They saw a stranger in their child's eyes. The descriptions are heartbreakingly specific. The changeling was said to have a deep, gravelly voice, skin the color of bark, and an unsettling wisdom in its eyes. It would refuse a mother's milk but devour shocking amounts of other food. It would lie silently for hours, then scream without pause for days. For a terrified, pre-scientific family, the idea that this creature was not their child, but a malevolent imposter, was not a fantasy. It was the only explanation that made sense of their living nightmare. It was a way to rationalize the unthinkable. And so, they developed defenses, an entire arsenal of folk magic designed to protect their precious children and expose the imposter. The most powerful and well-known of these was iron. Cold iron. To the Fae, iron is anathema. It is a pure product of the earth, smelted and forged by human hands, a symbol of industry and logic in a world of wild, untamed magic. Burns them. A simple iron pin fastened to a baby's blanket, a pair of scissors hung over the cradle, or a horseshoe nailed to the door were believed to create a barrier the Fae could not cross. It was the human world asserting its dominance, drawing a line in the sand and declaring this far, and no further. Running water was another powerful defense. A fairy cannot cross a flowing stream. It represents a constant state of change and purity, a boundary between worlds. To protect a newborn, a father might walk to the nearest river and fill a bottle, sprinkling a few drops around the nursery. Baptism in this context took on a dual meaning. Not just a religious sacrament, but a magical ward, cleansing the child with holy, running water and marking it as belonging to the human mortal world. Even simple tricks were believed to be effective. Turning a piece of clothing inside out was said to confuse the Fae, disrupting their magic. The sound of church bells ringing was like a physical blow to them, a proclamation of a different kind of power they could not contend with. But these methods were all preventative. What if you suspected it was already too late? What if the creature in the cradle was not your son or daughter? Then the methods became far more brutal. The goal was to shock or trick the changeling into revealing its true nature. One common tactic was to perform some bizarre and nonsensical act of cooking, like brewing beer in an eggshell. The changeling, with its ancient, hidden intelligence, would be so surprised by this absurdity that it would forget its disguise and cry out something like, "I am old as the oak in the forest, yet I have never seen beer brewed in an eggshell." With its identity revealed, the fairy parents would be forced to appear and swap the children back. But there was a darker, more terrifying method: a trial by fire. The belief was that the Fae were terrified of flame. A changeling would be held over a hot fire on a shovel, or left on a hearth of glowing coals. The logic was chillingly simple. A true human child would be burned, but the fairy imposter, in its terror, would abandon its disguise and fly up the chimney, screeching in rage. After it was gone, the parents would find their real child, returned to the cradle safe and sound. It is a horrifying thought, but it shows the absolute desperation these families felt. They were willing to risk the ultimate taboo to get their real child back from a world they could not see, a world of shimmering, terrifying magic. But this raises the final, most haunting question of all. While the parents on Earth were fighting to expose a monster, what was happening to the real child? The one who was stolen away. Where did they go? We imagine the realm of the Fae as a beautiful, enchanted paradise, a place of eternal twilight, sweet music and endless feasting. But the reality described in the lore is far from a fairy tale. It's a gilded cage, a place of treacherous beauty where time itself is a weapon, and a single bite of food can trap you forever. The human child stolen from our world is not a guest. It's a prisoner, and its life in the land of eternal youth is about to become an eternal nightmare. In our world, a mother leans over a cradle. She touches her baby's cheek, but something is wrong. The skin feels different, almost like old parchment. The eyes that open are not the bright, curious eyes of her infant, but ancient, knowing, and filled with a cold, unsettling wisdom. The cry that escapes its lips isn't the cry of a hungry child. It's a piercing, incessant shriek that claws at the sanity of everyone who hears it. This is not her child. This is the changeling. The creature left in the cradle is rarely a beautiful fairy child, as some gentler stories might suggest. Folklore from Ireland to Germany paints a much more terrifying picture. It is often described as a wizened, sickly thing, with a deformed body and a voracious, unnatural appetite. It can eat more than 3 grown farmhands, yet it never grows, never thrives. It is a black hole of need, draining the family's resources, their energy, their hope. Its constant wailing frays their nerves, isolating them from a village that begins to whisper. The mother, in particular, is often blamed. Has she been negligent? Did she fail to place the traditional iron tongs over the cradle to ward off the fae? Her grief and confusion curdle into shame. Her love for the child she lost is poisoned by the constant, draining presence of the thing that replaced him. This belief, this terror of the changeling, served a grim purpose in a world without modern medicine. It was an explanation for the unexplainable. A child born with a congenital disorder, a baby who failed to thrive, or a toddler who suddenly developed a debilitating illness could be rationalized not as a tragedy, but as an invasion. It wasn't their beloved child suffering. It was a malevolent imposter, a splinter from another world lodged in their home. This belief, while born of fear and a desperate need for answers, led to acts of unimaginable cruelty. Because the folklore didn't just describe the problem, it offered a solution, a terrible, violent form of magical negotiation. How do you get the fairies to take their creature back and return your human child? You have to make the changeling want to leave. You have to make its existence in our world more miserable than its existence in theirs. The methods, recorded in countless historical accounts and folktales, are the stuff of nightmares. One common practice was to utterly confuse the creature. A mother might pretend to brew beer in an eggshell. The sight of this impossible act would so startle the ancient mind within the infant's body that it would speak, revealing its true age and nature with a phrase like, "I am old as the western wood, but I have never seen beer brewed in an eggshell." Once its identity was revealed, its power was broken, and the fairies would be forced to reclaim it. But more often, the methods were brutal. They were a form of extreme duress, designed to send a message across the veil. A family might leave the changeling exposed on a dunghill overnight, believing the fairies would not allow their own kind to suffer such indignity. A far more horrific trial involved fire and iron, the two things fairies are said to fear most. The changeling might be held over a roaring hearth, its feet threatened with a red-hot shovel, the smell of burning peat and hot metal filling the small cottage. The logic was monstrously simple. The changeling's screams of pain would travel back to the fairy world. Its suffering was a ransom note written in agony. The fairies, hearing the cries of their kin, would have no choice but to appear, snatching away the tormented creature and in its place, leaving the stolen human child, often dazed and confused, but miraculously returned. The most famous account of this comes from the 19th century, in the case of Bridget Cleary in Ireland. Her husband became convinced that his wife, who had fallen ill, was not his wife at all, but a changeling. In a desperate, horrifying attempt to drive the fairy out and get his real wife back, he and several relatives tortured her, ultimately burning her to death. It's a chilling reminder that these weren't just quaint fireside stories. For centuries, people believed this. They acted on this belief. The fear of fairies was real, and its consequences were deadly. But let's turn our gaze from the tormented creature in the human world and look back through the veil. What of the stolen child? While the changeling suffers in our world, the human child in the fairy realm is undergoing their own transformation. The initial wonder and beauty of the land quickly fades. The child soon realizes they are not a guest, but a possession, a curiosity, a pet. They may be tasked with endless, meaningless chores, serving the fae thimbles of nectar or polishing mushroom thrones. They are a source of amusement, forced to dance to the hypnotic, never-ending fairy music until their feet bleed and their minds go numb. The food they are given, the single glistening berry or the sip of dew-sweetened wine, does more than just trap them there. Slowly changes them. It leaches away their memories of sunlight, of their mother's face, of the very concept of home. They forget who they were. Their human nature begins to fray, replaced by a hollow, echoing obedience. They are being groomed, but for what? Here we arrive at one of the darkest secrets of the Fae. Their land of eternal youth may not be as eternal as it seems. Some lore suggests that the fairies themselves do age, that their vitality fades, and that their magic requires a constant source of renewal. And the most potent source is the vibrant, raw life force of a healthy human child. The child isn't just a servant, they are a battery. Their youth is being siphoned away to sustain the ageless glamour of their captors. They are a flower, plucked from the human world to be kept in a vase, beautiful for a time, but slowly withering to keep the fairy court in bloom. And even that is not the most terrifying fate that could await them, for there is the matter of a debt, a terrible recurring payment known as the tained or the tithe to hell. This belief, most prominent in Scottish folklore, held that the fairies were not entirely independent. They were subjects of a lower, darker power, and every 7 years they were required to pay a tax, a tithe, to the king of hell. This tithe was not paid in gold or jewels, it was paid in souls. The fairies, being proud and loath to sacrifice one of their own, found a loophole. They could offer a substitute. A mortal soul was just as good, if not better. And so the stolen human children, the handsome young men and beautiful young women lured into the fairy mounds, suddenly had a new horrifying purpose. They were not just prisoners or servants, they were potential sacrifices. They were fattened calves, kept and cared for until the 7th year came around, when one of them would be chosen. Dressed in finery, they would be led to the edge of the fairy realm and handed over. A payment to the darkness to ensure the fairies' own continued freedom and prosperity. The ultimate betrayal. The magical, whimsical beings of lore, in this version of the story, are nothing more than beautiful, terrifying middlemen in a transaction with hell itself. And the price of their magic is paid with human lives. But to truly understand this terrifying transaction, we have to peel back the layers of our own modern assumptions. When we hear the words hell or demons, our minds are immediately flooded with Christian imagery. Fire, brimstone, a horned figure with a pitchfork. But the folklore we're discussing is far, far older than that. It comes from a time when the world was seen very differently. The concept of another world, an underworld, didn't necessarily mean a place of eternal punishment. It was simply the other world, a parallel dimension, a spirit realm that existed alongside our own, separated by the thinnest of veils. And the beings who lived there weren't demons in the way we think of them now. The original Greek word daimon simply meant a spirit or a divine power, something not quite human and not quite a god. They were neutral, incomprehensible. Their morality was not our morality. So what if the transaction isn't with a singular, ultimate evil, but with an ancient, non-human intelligence that sees us not as souls to be damned, but as a resource to be harvested? This shifts the entire paradigm. The deal isn't one of good versus evil. It's a cold, biological, or energetic exchange. They have something we want: luck, prosperity, magical abilities that defy our understanding of physics. And we have something they desperately need, something they are willing to trade for. And all the evidence, all the darkest stories, point to one horrifying conclusion. What they need is us. Our life force. Our children. Our very genetic essence. This is where the most disturbing piece of fairy lore comes into focus. The changeling. The story is always the same, repeated with chilling consistency across countless cultures and centuries. A healthy, happy human baby is stolen from its crib in the dead of night. In its place, the fairies leave one of their own. A sickly, strange, withered creature that looks like the human child but isn't. It is often described as having an uncanny wisdom in its eyes, an oldness that doesn't belong in an infant. This stock or changeling would refuse to eat, or eat voraciously without ever growing. It would cry incessantly with a strange, inhuman sound. It would never learn to speak, never show affection. It was a hollow copy, a shell. For centuries, this was seen as an act of simple malice. But what if it's something else entirely? What if it's not about cruelty but about necessity, a biological imperative? Let's look at this from their perspective. Imagine a species, perhaps ancient and sterile, whose genetic code is breaking down. They are unable to reproduce effectively. They see a young, vibrant, healthy species, humanity, thriving. To them, our infants are the peak of genetic potential. Pure, uncorrupted, bursting with vitality. So they take one, and in its place they leave one of their own weak, failing offspring. Why? Is it a desperate attempt to have their child raised in a healthier environment? Or is it something more calculated? A way to study us? To create a hybrid? The changeling in the crib isn't just a replacement. It's an observer. A biological probe sent to live among us. The human child, meanwhile, is taken to the other world. Not to be a pet or a slave, but for a breeding program. To have its genetic vitality infused into the fading fairy bloodline. This isn't just a fairy tale. This is the exact narrative of modern alien abduction. Think about it. Replace the word fairy with alien, the other world with another planet or dimension, and the changeling with hybrid. The stories are identical. Modern abductees report being taken by strange, non-human beings. They describe medical procedures, often focused on their reproductive systems. They speak of being shown hybrid children, part human, part alien, and being told these children are theirs. The beings are often described as emotionless, acting with a cold, scientific purpose. They aren't evil in a mustache-twirling way. They are simply performing a function that is terrifying and violating to us, but to them is simply necessary for their survival. Could it be that the phenomenon has never changed, only our language for it has? That what our ancestors in rural Ireland called the gentry or the Seelie, we now call Greys or Nordics? This isn't just a wild theory. It was the life's work of one of the most respected researchers in the field of anomalous phenomena, a man named Jacques Vallée. Vallée was a French-born astrophysicist, computer scientist, and venture capitalist. He was a serious data-driven scientist, the model for the French researcher character in Steven Spielberg's Close Encounters of the Third Kind. And after decades of rigorous, on-the-ground investigation into both UFO sightings and historical folklore, he came to a startling conclusion. In his seminal 1969 book, Passport to Magonia, Vallée laid out the case, point by point, that the modern alien abduction phenomenon is nothing more than the ancient fairy faith in a technological disguise. He compiled thousands of reports, ancient and modern, and showed how the parallels were too numerous and too specific to be a coincidence. The little men with magical powers. The missing time where victims would disappear for what felt like minutes, only to return hours or days later. The strange paralysis that would overcome witnesses. The floating lights in the sky, the fairy lights. The small circular patches of scorched or swirled grass left behind, which our ancestors called fairy rings, and we now call landing traces. The promises of knowledge or power. The abduction of humans. The creation of hybrids. Vallée argued that we are not dealing with visitors from another planet. That's too simple. Interstellar travel, he reasoned, is clunky and inefficient. We are dealing with something far stranger. Beings that are not extraterrestrial but ultra-terrestrial, coexisting with us on Earth, but in a different dimension or a different frequency of reality. They have been here all along. They have always interacted with us, always taken us. But Vallée's theory went even deeper, and this is where it gets truly unsettling. He proposed that these interactions are not random. They are part of a vast millennia-long control system. He suggested that these beings, these fairies, these aliens, whatever you want to call them, are actively manipulating human belief systems. They are staging events, presenting themselves in a guise that matches our cultural expectations for that era, in order to steer our development. In a pre-industrial age, they appeared as nature spirits, elves, and goblins, shaping our religions and our relationship with the natural world. In the 19th century, during the spiritualist craze, they appeared as ghosts and phantoms. And now, in our technological age, they appear as aliens in spaceships, shaping our ideas about science, the universe, and our place in it. It's a form of psychological warfare, or perhaps psychological farming. They are cultivating our beliefs. Why? To what end? Vallée theorized that it might be a mechanism to keep humanity from destroying itself, or perhaps to guide our consciousness to a new level of understanding. But there's a darker possibility. What if this control system isn't for our benefit at all? What if it's for theirs? What if they are managing us the same way a farmer manages livestock, guiding our social evolution to ensure that we remain a stable, predictable, and harvestable resource? This theory suggests that the fairies of old and the aliens of today are not just stealing children. They are stealing our reality. They are the hidden architects of our culture, the secret authors of our deepest myths. They give us a taste of magic, a glimpse of impossible technology, a whisper of a world beyond our own. Just enough to keep us looking up at the sky wondering. Just enough to keep us compliant. We are so busy debating whether they are real or not that we never stop to ask the most important question. What do they want from us in the long run? What is the ultimate goal of this ancient, interdimensional control system? To answer that, we have to look past the individual encounters, past the stolen children and the strange lights in the woods, and see the pattern. We have to see the system. For millennia, humanity has been a resource, a crop, and the ultimate goal of any farmer is the harvest. But what exactly are they harvesting from us? It's not our bodies, not in the way a predator hunts its prey. It's something far more subtle and far more valuable. They are harvesting our experience, our very consciousness. Think about the classic fairy encounter. It's never neutral. It's always an experience of extreme emotion. It's paralyzing terror as you realize you're lost in a forest that has rearranged itself around you. It's overwhelming divine ecstasy as you're shown a glimpse of a world so beautiful it breaks your heart. It's the soul-crushing grief of a mother whose beautiful, healthy baby has been replaced by a withered, screaming creature that is not her child. Terror, ecstasy, grief. These are not just side effects of the encounter. They are the entire point. There is a concept in esoteric thought, a dark and controversial one, known as lush. It's a term for the emotional energy, the psychic essence, generated by sentient beings, particularly during moments of intense feeling. And according to this theory, there are entities that feed on this energy. They cultivate it. They provoke it. They see our world not as a collection of countries and people, but as a vast open-range farm for the production of emotional energy. The Fae in this model are the ultimate energy farmers. They are masters of manipulating our perceptions and our emotions to produce the most potent, lush imaginable. A simple trick of leading a traveler astray in the woods generates hours of fear, panic, and despair. A brief, enchanting dance in a moonlit clearing can produce a lifetime of wistful, longing melancholy in the person who witnesses it. Every interaction is calculated to maximize the emotional yield. And the changeling phenomenon, it's the most horrifying and efficient example of this harvest. They don't just take the child. They could do that silently, leaving no trace. No, they leave a replacement. A stock. A sickly, uncanny thing that serves as a constant, agonizing reminder of the loss. Why? Because the sudden shock of a kidnapping produces a powerful, but fleeting burst of energy. But the slow, grinding daily sorrow of a mother caring for a creature she knows isn't her own, that is a sustainable source of high-quality negative energy for years. It's a psychic battery, powered by a broken heart. This is the first layer of their goal, to use us as a food source. But it goes deeper. The harvest isn't just about emotion. It's about potential. It's about our very essence. Many ancient traditions speak of a time when humanity was far more powerful, when we walked with the gods, when the veil between worlds was thin, when we ourselves possessed magical abilities. What if the Fae, the good neighbors, were instrumental in ending that era? What if their purpose is to manage humanity, to keep us spiritually contained and underdeveloped? Consider the rules. Don't step in a fairy ring. Don't eat their food. Don't say their name. Don't thank them. We interpret these as quaint pieces of folklore, but what if they are the control mechanisms of a cosmic prison? Every rule is a limitation. Every taboo is a fence. They have spent thousands of years teaching us to fear our own latent abilities, to fear the unseen world, to stay on the well-trodden path. They've conditioned us to believe that magic is either fantasy or a dark art, that contact with other dimensions is dangerous and to be avoided. They are the wardens of our reality, and their primary directive is to keep the inmates from realizing they are in a prison. Why? Because a humanity that is spiritually asleep, disconnected from its own innate power, is a much more manageable crop. A sleeping giant cannot rise up against its masters. We are kept in a state of perpetual childhood, distracted by material concerns, political squabbles, and the endless noise of modern life, all while they siphon off the divine spark that we barely even know we possess. They are harvesting our creativity, our devotion, our love, our rage, all the raw power that we would otherwise be using to evolve, to ascend, to break free from their control. This is the great deception. The Tuatha De Danann, the ancient shining Fae of Ireland, were said to have been defeated by the invading Milesians, the ancestors of the Irish people. But the stories say they didn't leave. They simply retreated. They went into the Hollow Hills, into the other world. We see this as a defeat, a surrender. But what if it was a strategic masterstroke? They gave up overt, physical control of the world for a much more powerful, subtle, and permanent form of control. They went from being kings on the ground to being gods behind the curtain. They stopped managing our bodies and started managing our souls. From this hidden realm, they can pull the strings of our reality. They can influence our thoughts, inspire our myths, and guide our history, all while remaining completely unseen. They created the very concept of the veil that separates our worlds, a psychic barrier designed to keep us in and to keep us ignorant. We are living in a carefully curated reality, a garden where we are the prize-winning roses, beautiful and admired, but ultimately pruned, contained, and cultivated for the benefit of the gardener. And what is the final product of this harvest? What do they do with all this energy, this potential, this siphoned-off divinity? Perhaps they use it to sustain their own existence. Many myths describe the Fae as being timeless, unchanging. Perhaps this is because they do not generate their own spiritual energy. They are a sterile race, a beautiful but barren echo of some former glory. Like cosmic vampires, they lost their own connection to the source of creation, and now they must feed on the life force of younger, more vibrant species to keep their own shimmering world from fading into nothingness. Our life force, our emotions, our very souls are the fuel that powers their eternal twilight kingdom. They are not evil in the way we understand it. A farmer is not evil for harvesting his wheat. He is simply acting according to his nature and his needs. We are their wheat, and the system they have built, the reality they maintain, is the most sophisticated and successful farm in the universe. They have convinced the crop to harvest itself. And as we sit here now, bathed in the glow of screens, our emotions constantly manipulated by algorithms designed to provoke outrage, desire, and anxiety, we have to ask ourselves a terrifying question. Has the harvest simply become more efficient? Have the hollow hills and the enchanted forests been replaced by a digital otherworld? The Fae may no longer need to trick us into a fairy ring to trap us. We may be building the cages for ourselves and willingly handing them the keys, all while they feast on the emotional chaos we create. They haven't vanished. They've just upgraded their tools. Think about it. The endless scroll. You pick up your phone for just a moment, and when you look up, an hour has vanished. An hour you can't account for. It's a perfect modern-day echo of the person who stumbles into a fairy circle, dances for what feels like a minute, and emerges to find years have passed. The mechanism is different, algorithms and dopamine instead of pipes and glamour, but is the result truly any different? Time stolen, life consumed, and the feasting on chaos? Look at our digital town squares. Social media platforms are engineered for engagement, and nothing engages us more reliably than outrage. We are baited into furious arguments with strangers, pouring our passion, our anger, our very life force into a void that only grows hungrier. We feel drained, exhausted, and hollowed out after these encounters. We think it's just the stress of modern life. But what if it's more? What if we are providing a banquet for entities that have always thrived on the strong, raw emotions of humanity? Every angry tweet, every tearful post, every cycle of public shaming and cancellation. It's a feast. It's the Unseelie Court gone global, and we are both the jesters and the main course. This leads to the most terrifying modern parallel of all, the changeling. The old stories tell of fairies stealing a human baby and leaving a sickly, strange creature in its place. A creature that looked like the child but was empty, a hollow shell. Now consider our online lives. We meticulously craft digital versions of ourselves. We post our happiest moments, our most flattering pictures, our most clever thoughts. We create an avatar, a shining, perfect glamour of a person. But the more time and energy we pour into maintaining this digital doppelganger, the more our real selves can begin to fade. We become tired, anxious, and disconnected from the physical world. We start to feel like a pale imitation of the vibrant person we pretend to be online. The swap has already happened. They don't need to steal the baby from the crib anymore. They just need to convince us to build a better, shinier version of ourselves online, and then slowly, subtly persuade us to trade places with it. We become the hollow thing left behind, scrolling in the dark, while our bright, beautiful digital ghost dances for the world. We become the changeling in our own lives, a sickly replacement for the real human we were meant to be, constantly crying for a nourishment, a validation that never truly satisfies. And here lies the most profound and disturbing irony. What was the one thing, the one universal ward against the Fae in almost every tradition? Iron. Cold iron. It was the bane of their existence. a symbol of human industry and the taming of the natural world. Iron burned them, repelled them, broke their spells. So what did we do? We built an entire global civilization on it. We took their greatest weakness and made it the foundation of our world. But we didn't stop there. We refined it. We created steel, silicon, and circuits. We built a worldwide web, a grid of wires and servers, an invisible network that now covers the planet. We carry devices of metal, glass, and plastic in our pockets, cold hard portals connected to this grid. We thought our technology, our cold iron, made us safe. We thought it proved we were masters of our own reality. What if we were wrong? What if we simply built them a better delivery system? A network of cold iron that, instead of repelling them, now pipes their influence directly into our homes, into our hands, into our minds. They no longer have to lurk in the woods or wait by the crossroads. We've invited them in. We've built the very infrastructure they needed to transcend their old physical limitations. The thing that was once their poison has become their chariot. This isn't to say that every programmer at a tech company is in league with the Fae. That's missing the point. It's about the nature of the system itself. A system designed to capture attention, to manipulate emotion, and to blur the lines between reality and illusion. Does that sound familiar? It's the very definition of fairy magic scaled up for 8 billion people. The internet itself can be seen as a kind of digital otherworld, with its own rules, its own entities, and its own dangers. There is a Seelie Court of the internet, without a doubt. It's where we find genuine connection, where we learn new skills, where art and beauty and knowledge can be shared instantly across the globe. It's a place of incredible light and potential, a testament to the best of human ingenuity. But there is also an Unseelie Court. It's the dark forests of anonymous forums, the poisoned wells of misinformation, the treacherous swamps of conspiracy theories that pull people under. It's the trolls that act like modern-day boggarts, delighting in causing misery and chaos for its own sake. It's the algorithms that seem to have a mischievous, amoral intelligence of their own, leading people down ever darker paths not out of malice, but simply because it keeps them watching. It's a realm governed by a cold, alien logic that is utterly indifferent to human well-being. In the old world, you had to be careful what you said, lest the good folk overhear. You had to be careful what you accepted from them, lest you become indebted. You had to be careful not to eat their food, lest you be trapped in their world forever. The rules haven't changed. We are constantly speaking our innermost thoughts into a system that is always listening. We click "I agree" on terms and conditions we never read, entering into bargains with unseen corporate entities, giving away pieces of our privacy, our identity, for a taste of their service. And we consume their food. A constant diet of curated content, manufactured outrage, and fleeting digital rewards that traps us more surely than any enchanted fruit. The old offerings of milk and bread have been replaced. Our new offerings are far more valuable. We offer our attention, the most precious currency we have. We offer our data, a perfect crystalline record of our desires, fears, and habits. And most potently, we offer our emotional energy. We are farming ourselves, willingly sacrificing our peace of mind on the digital altar of engagement. We have entangled ourselves in a system that mirrors their ancient patterns with terrifying precision. We've done it under the banner of progress and connection, never once suspecting that we might be replicating the most ancient of traps on a scale our ancestors couldn't have possibly imagined. We have built a beautiful, glittering, and infinitely complex cage for the human soul. And we are holding the door open, mesmerized by the pretty lights inside. But just as the old folklore warned us of the dangers, it also left us clues. It spoke of protections, of wards, of ways to see through the glamour and reclaim your name. The knowledge of how to defend ourselves isn't lost. It has been waiting in the pages of these old stories all along. A hidden instruction manual for a war we never realized we were fighting. We've diagnosed the problem. We see the bars of the cage forming around us. The only question that matters now is, how do we break free? The answer isn't a magic wand or a silver bullet. It's not a single simple trick. Breaking free is a process. It's a fundamental shift in the way we perceive and interact with the world. The prison isn't made of iron bars. It's made of apathy, distraction, and disbelief. And the key to unlocking it has been hidden in plain sight, woven into the very fabric of the lore we dismissed as fantasy. The first step, the most crucial one, is awareness. You have to accept that the spell is real. You have to shatter the illusion of mundane reality that has been so carefully constructed around you. For generations, we've been conditioned to laugh at these ideas, to file them under superstition. This is their greatest weapon. A predator you don't believe in is the most dangerous predator of all. So you must begin to see, not just with your eyes but with your intuition. You have to question the constant, numbing stream of information designed to keep your mind occupied and your spirit dormant. That endless scroll, that manufactured outrage, that relentless pursuit of the next fleeting dopamine hit. What is it, really? It's a glamour. A global-scale enchantment designed to keep you looking down at a glowing rectangle, so you never look up and see the puppeteers. Re-enchanting the world doesn't mean believing in Tinkerbell. It means recognizing that there are forces and intelligences at play that operate on principles we've forgotten. It means listening to that small, quiet voice inside you that gets a chill when you walk past a certain grove of trees, or feels a strange sense of unease in a perfectly normal-looking place. That is your primal human sense, your built-in fey detector, and we have been trained to ignore it, to medicate it, to rationalize it away. Step 1 is to stop, listen, and believe yourself. Once you have awareness, you can cultivate the second tool, intention. This is where the old folklore transforms from quaint advice into a practical defense manual. Every strange rule, every bizarre prohibition, is a lesson in wielding focused human will. Take iron. Why are the Fae so terrified of cold iron? It's not just a simple allergy. Iron represents the pinnacle of human artifice. It is a thing of the earth, ripped from the ground, and forged in fire and intention into something new. It is pure, unyielding, human-made reality. It is the antithesis of their world of glamour and illusion. To carry iron isn't a superstition. It's a declaration. It is an anchor to this physical world. It says, I am here. I am real. Your tricks have no purchase on me. It is a conscious, intentional act of grounding yourself in reality. The same is true for running water. They cannot cross it. Why? Because a river is a natural, moving boundary. It is a symbol of constant change, of purity, of a power that is wild and untamable even by them. By understanding this, you learn to create your own boundaries, to say no and mean it, to define your own space, your own mind, your own soul, and declare it sovereign territory. A person with strong, healthy boundaries is a fortress the Fae cannot breach. And what about the power of a name? In every story, to know a creature's true name is to have power over it. But they have used this against us. Their greatest trick has been to make us forget our own true names. Not the name on your driver's license, but who you truly are, beneath the layers of social conditioning, consumer profiles, and digital avatars. They want you to be a user, a voter, a demographic. They do not want you to be a unique, sovereign individual with a will of your own. The journey of self-discovery, of stripping away the false identities and finding your authentic self, that is one of the most powerful acts of war you can wage. When you know who you are, their labels and illusions lose all power. You become an anomaly they cannot categorize or control. Even the simple traditions of offering bread and salt are acts of intention. These are symbols of the earth, of sustenance, of community. To offer them is to invoke the sacred laws of hospitality. It is to say, you may enter my space, but you will do so on my terms. You will abide by the ancient rules of guest and host. It turns a potential incursion into a controlled interaction. You are setting the rules. You are dictating the terms of engagement. You are no longer a passive victim. This brings us to the final, most important step, action. Awareness and intention are your shield and your sword. But action is the will to wield them. It's not enough to know you're in a cage. You have to actively live a life that dissolves the bars. How? You reclaim your sovereignty. You do this by choosing creation over consumption. The Fae are mimics. They are echoes. They can create stunningly beautiful illusions, but they cannot create anything truly new. That is a uniquely human gift. To write a poem, to paint a picture, to build a garden, to cook a meal for people you love. These are acts of pure creation. They are expressions of the human soul that resonate on a frequency the Fae cannot touch. Every time you create, you are reinforcing your own reality and weakening theirs. You must also choose community over isolation. The classic changeling story preys on the isolated mother, the lone traveler. The Fae thrive in the spaces between us. They want us divided, suspicious, and alone, staring at our screens. Genuine human connection, a real conversation, an act of selfless kindness, a shared laugh, generates a powerful spiritual energy. It creates a network of light that is anathema to them. They cannot infiltrate a strong, loving community. It is a bulwark against their influence. And you must, above all, choose truth over deception. This is the hardest part. It means being honest with yourself and with others. It means rejecting the comfortable lies the world feeds you. It means seeking out what is real and substantial, even when it's difficult or unpopular. Their entire kingdom is built on glamour, on lies that look like truth. Every time you speak your truth, you fire a cannonball straight through their castle walls. This is the war we have been fighting without realizing it. It's not about fairies in the bottom of the garden. It's about the struggle for the soul of humanity. It's a battle against the forces that seek to lull us into a passive, dreamlike state, to feed on our energy, our creativity, and our potential, leaving us as hollowed-out husks. The old stories weren't just warnings. They were a call to arms. They were a reminder of what we are and what we are capable of. They remind us that the most powerful magic in this world doesn't belong to them. It belongs to us. It is the magic of a focused will, a creative spirit, and a courageous heart. The truth behind the fairies is that they are a reflection. They are a dark mirror held up to humanity, showing us everything we stand to lose if we fall asleep. They show us the price of apathy, but they also show us our own power by defining its opposite. We are the creators. We are the builders. We are the anchors of reality. We have forgotten this, and in our forgetting, we have let the bars of the cage close around us. But we are awake now. We see the illusion for what it is. The old magic is not lost. It's just been waiting. It's in the iron in your blood, the salt in your tears, and the fire in your soul. The question is no longer how we break free. The question is, what will you create with your freedom?